Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation I received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, can someone actually build an impressive physique naturally anymore? Or do you eventually hit a ceiling where steroids and peptides become the only way forward? Yeah, so in my experience working with the general population, most people never reach their full genetic potential as far as it goes to building muscle and losing fat. Most people don't want to go to those extreme levels, and that's okay. A lot of people go to the gym, they want to get fit, they want to put on some muscle, they want to lose some body fat, but they don't need to get to single digit body fat levels like 5% if you're a guy, or very low double digit body fats like 12, 14% if you're a woman. They don't need to put on like 100 pounds of muscle. They're not trying to win a Mr. Olympia competition. So for the average person who just wants to get healthy, fit, add a little bit more muscle, lose fat, I truly believe that there's no reason to try to exceed and go above and beyond. Now, what I mean by that is usage of PEDs, performance enhancement drugs, anabolic steroids, peptides. Okay. Now, for those people who do decide to go down that road, usually competitive athletes, bodybuilders, physique competitors, I understand drugs are prevalent in these sports, but there's also people who want to use them because they want to fast track their results. And again, I'm not judging people for that. You're an adult. If you want to go on an anabolic steroid cycle at 18 years old, who am I to tell you not to do it? But what I will tell you is this, that if you choose to go down that path and you haven't really tapped into your natural capability of putting on muscle and losing fat, and you're taking this shortcut, what's going to happen when you come off those drugs, whether they're anabolic steroids or peptides, any results that you achieved, you will lose. You will, because you didn't build a foundation naturally. You didn't have muscle or a lot of muscle naturally because you never tapped into your full potential. And that's why I always tell anyone who works with me, if they're thinking about going on steroids or fat burners or peptides, I say, look, I say you have to be completely honest with yourself. Yourself. Have you done everything you possibly can to improve your physique? And what I mean by that is, are you going to the gym consistently 5, 6 days a week? Are you following a training split that actually makes sense? Are you approaching your workouts intelligently? Are you training methodically? Are you making sure your diet is dialed in? And I don't just mean pre-workout nutrition, post-workout nutrition, and shit the bed for the rest of the day with Uber Eats and takeout and all this nonsense. Is your diet dialed in? Getting your 5 to 6 meals in a day, portioning out your meals, using a food scale. Most people I talk to are not doing all these things. So therefore, you have not tapped into your natural resources. Right. And this is why when I was coming up, especially when I was started weight training at 15 years old, the usage of anabolic steroids, like I'm sure there were guys my age and maybe 17, 18 that were using them, but not many because steroids were something that you didn't talk about very often. Peptides weren't even around, but steroids were something that no one really, you knew about them. Maybe someone knew a few people doing them, but they were usually the older guys that had put in the time and the effort and the work. All right, guys who had been in the gym for at least 10 years. And I feel like that's why, for me, I stand by that because I'm like, I should be able to build a fairly decent physique naturally. All right. If I had to start relying on the drugs to build a physique, as soon as I come off those drugs, I'm going to lose all the results. And never forget about just the physical effects. Look at the mental effects, right? You're on a steroid cycle, peptides, whatever. You're feeling strong in the gym, right? You're much stronger. You're looking better, but it's kind of fake because you're not really doing that naturally. And what happens is you're feeling like Superman in the gym, but when you come off the drugs, you're going to feel like a little kid, right? Because now you don't feel like Superman anymore. You feel normal, right? And normal doesn't feel good. You want to feel like you're on the drugs again. So it's not me telling people not to use the drugs. If you want to use drugs, go ahead, use them. I understand, like I said, in professional sports like bodybuilding, it's necessary. They're all using the drugs. So of course you have to use them unless you compete in a natural federation. But if you're going to compete with the big boys and the big girls, yeah, you're going to have to go on the drugs. But if your goal is just to look healthy or be healthy, look fit, add on muscle, and keep your body fat levels low, but not dangerously low, You don't need to go on the drugs. You don't need the peptides. You don't need the anabolic steroids. I promise you, you don't. You just need to put in the work. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to put in the work. I personally don't think anyone should be looking at a steroid cycle unless they're in the gym 5, 6 days a week, unless their diet's dialed in, they're eating 5, 6 meals a day, they're portioned out their meals, they weighed all their meals, and they're doing that for a minimum of 5 years straight. Not 5 months, a minimum of 5 years. Then go back and say, okay, you know what? Now I want to build my physique a little bit more. I want to get a little bit more enhanced. Sure. Do your research, maybe work with a coach that can guide you along the way of a proper supplement protocol so you don't hurt yourself, because you can hurt yourself with these drugs, peptides included. So you want to make sure that you're doing your research on who you're working with and what you're taking, okay, if you decide to go down that road. I feel though, especially in today's era, everyone wants everything right away. You've got Amazon, you can order something, you get it the next day. Hell, sometimes you even get it the same day, right? Nobody wants to wait. So it's the same thing in the gym. They don't want to wait for the results. They want them instantly, right? And you get a lot of these procedures going on with this cool sculpting and people getting Brazilian butt lifts and all this work, calf implants, pec implants. I'm like, Jesus. And again, do what you want to do. But I'm a firm believer that when you're building a physique naturally, all that hard work, all that effort, all that time, yes, it helps build a better physique. Yes, it's going to make you more healthy, more fit, but it also builds character. All right. And that's important because that teaches hard work. Oh, I have to work to get this. I don't just stick a needle in my butt to get this. I actually have to put in the work. I have to put in the time. I have to put in the effort. And you're going to reap the rewards because you're going to maintain and sustain the results you achieve. Even if you take a few weeks off the gym, you're not going to deflate. You're not going to just get fat all of a sudden because you've built it naturally. All right. So for me, I'm a firm believer in staying natural for as long as you possibly can and only going down that road, if you truly have used all your natural resources, which I would say most people haven't even gotten close to doing that. All right. Okay. Nick, why is it that I can lose fat everywhere except my lower stomach? Am I doing something wrong or is that just genetics? Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong. It is your genetics, right? I mean, you don't get to choose your parents, you don't get to choose your grandparents. Some of us get the genetic lottery. Basketball players, 6'5", born for the sport, right? A 6'5" basketball player is usually going to be better than a 5'6" basketball player, right? So same thing with like hockey players, that eye-hand coordination, professional golfers. There is something to be said about someone who is just born with naturally good genetics and have that natural born talent. And when you stack good genetics with talent and a hard work ethic or an excellent work ethic, that to me is an unbeatable combination. But if you get like average genetics, and I've always talked about how I have average shitty white guy genetics, but you're still a hard worker, you can still do really well with your physique. You can still grow a great physique. You absolutely can, but you've got to put in the work. You've got to put in the effort. Okay, it goes back to that first question. You got to be willing to put in the time, the discipline to build that physique and to keep your diet in check. All right, that's important. But to go back to that, there's something to be said about spot reduction. And I've talked about spot reduction numerous times on the Q&A in the past. And what I've talked about with spot reduction is just because you want fat to go, like say from your case, you want to go from your midsection. And it's just not leaving from there. It's gone from everywhere else. Maybe you've lost fat on your face, you've lost fat on your arms, your butt, your thighs, but for some reason the stomach is the last to go. My answer to you in this case is keep plugging away. Keep doing what you're doing. Because what's happening is as you lose fat from everywhere else in your body, there's only so many places left on your body where the fat is going to be and where you're going to have to lose it from. So in your case, it's your stomach. And a lot of times that just comes down to where your fat cells are distributed. You ever notice with women tend to put on weight more in their lower body, where men, we tend to put it more on our midsection, our love handles, our lower back. That has a lot to do with, yes, genetics, yes, gender, but a lot with fat cell distribution. Right. There are some guys that have a hard time. They put fat on their lower body. Not many, but there are guys. I've worked with guys who put on fat in their butt and their thighs. It does happen. In those cases, I think it's usually because the men have a little bit higher estrogen levels. But regardless, you can't choose where your fat cells are distributed, nor can you spot reduce. And I know people are going to talk about this cool sculpt. To me, that's all nonsense. Maybe it works a little bit, but you can't, unless you're going to get actually liposuction, you can't just sculpt away fat from a certain area. All right. I don't believe in that nonsense at all. But what I will tell you is, like, if you're in a caloric deficit and you're doing your cardio and you're making sure that you're getting your weight training in every day, or 5, 6 times a week anyway, you will lose that fat in your case from your stomach. It just will take a little bit longer because if there's nowhere else on your body, like your face is leaned out, your arms are leaned out, you've got no fat in your butt and your thighs, That's where it's going to go last. But, and I know it's irritating, it's annoying because like, man, why won't it leave? It will though. You just have to keep plugging away. I would have this problem every time I got ready for a show. I have no fat on my legs, zero. Like I can't even pinch skin on my legs, none on my butt. And so I never had to worry about that. And I have very little fat up here and even in my midsection, very little fat. But where I would always carry the fat was actually the in my back, right near my so-called love handles, like just the back near the spinal rectors. And as I got leaner and leaner for a show, that was always the last place to go. And that's how I knew I was in shape when I no longer could pinch any fat back there ever. Okay. So for me, my fat cells are distributed more throughout the lower abdominal region, but more so in the lower back and the love handles, in the intercostals and obliques. That's just my genetics. All right. But rather than say, well, I can never fix that, I'm like, I already know that because I've dieted for so many shows over the years. So I know that's always the last place to get in shape for me. But once I'm there, I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to get on stage. And honestly, it would be probably like 2 weeks out, and then it would start to flatten out more. I lose that fat because there was nowhere else on my body to lose fat. Okay, my face, I look like Skeletor. My cheeks were sunken in. If you go back to any of my contest photos, you'll see I've always have a very skinny face, no striations in my pecs. I had striations in my glutes. I had no fat anywhere else. That was the last place. But I kept plugging away, kept doing the diet. I didn't have to do anything crazy. I just kept staying in my caloric deficit, making sure I was eating all my meals, making sure I was training properly, getting my cardio sessions in, and the fat would go. All right. So don't give up and don't get frustrated and don't believe in spot reduction. It doesn't exist. So don't go to the gym and start doing 1,000 crunches, 1,000 sit-ups a day. You're going to get a strong core from doing that. Probably overtraining your core, but you're not going to lose any fat. All right. The fat loss comes from a combination of cardio and diet. All right. You have to make sure your cardio's in check. You have to make sure your diet's in check. The fat will come off. I promise you. You just have to stay disciplined and consistent. Okay. Nick, if calories are all that matter, why do some people seem to stay lean eating junk food while others gain weight eating healthy? This is the third time this month I've had someone say that if calories are all that matters. Calories are not all that matters. And I've never said this. So if you watch my Q&As, if you watch my coaching reality series, if you follow me on Instagram, watch the YouTube shorts, I constantly talk about how it's not about calories. Yes, you need to be in a somewhat of a caloric deficit to lose weight. Yes, you need to be in a somewhat of a caloric surplus to put on weight. But notice I'm saying weight and not fat and not muscle. All right. When you want to change your body composition, calorie counting, I don't want to say becomes completely irrelevant, but macronutrient counting, and more importantly, micronutrient counting, the quality of the macronutrients that you're consuming is of the utmost importance. Because if you're trying to change body composition, that means you have to go to the gym and lift weights. If you're eating like a bird, you can't train like a horse, period. You can't. Not my quote, Lee Haney's quote. Okay. So you have to make sure that you're fueling your body properly so that you can get your weight training sessions in so that you can add on muscle. But you want to make sure you have enough energy so you can still do your cardiovascular activity as well. If all you do is put yourself in a caloric deficit and do hours of cardio, you're going to lose a combination of muscle, water, and fat. And it's mostly going to be muscle and water. Right. So you have to, again, think outside the box and stop counting calories and focus more on your macronutrients and your micronutrients. So I just want to make that very clear because it's the third time in this month that I've had someone say if calories are all that matters. So calories is not all that matters. All right. So to go back to your question, why do some people eat junk food and they stay lean? Okay. Well, again, if someone is, I know lots of people like this who don't have the best diets and they eat McDonald's every day, or they'll have like some type of sweet. They'll have like a donut or a muffin or cookies every day. Right? I know quite a few people like this. They don't go to the gym. They're lean. Looking at them on paper, they're lean. But if you were to do a body fat test on most of these people, you would be surprised to see that their body fat levels are quite high. Right? Because again, body fat percentage is not based on just looking at someone and saying, oh, wow, they're skinny. They must have low body fat. Body fat percentage is just based on how much muscle you don't have. So if you don't go to the gym and train, guess what? You're going to have a higher body fat percentage versus someone who goes to the gym and trains on a regular basis. I've talked about the story in the past, how when I was going for my practicum as a personal trainer, I got thrown a mock client to do a body fat test on. She was very skinny, Asian girl, and I kept getting 40% body fat. I'm like, something's wrong here. This girl's really skinny, like just rake thin. And I thought I was doing something wrong. And then when the instructor came by and I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm using the calipers. I've done it 3 times. I don't know why the body fat percentage is so high. He said, you ask her any questions about what she does for training, what she does for nutrition? I was like, no, I'm just doing a body fat test. So why don't you ask? When I asked, it doesn't work well with weights. No weight training whatsoever. None. not the best diet, right? And I should have tapped into that, but I was young. I was like 17 years old. I didn't know any better. And her having a pink banana loaf from Bread Garden should have given it away. But I wasn't thinking. I'm like, well, she's so skinny. Why is her body fat percentage? I thought I was doing something wrong, but her body fat was at 40% because she didn't work out. So even though she looked skinny, her body fat percentage was high because she didn't have much muscle mass. All right. So it's very important to remember that. So just because someone follows a clean diet doesn't necessarily they're going to mean they're going to be super lean either. Because if you're following a clean diet, but you're still in a caloric surplus, right, and you're not really paying attention to your macronutrients, you're going to put on unwanted weight because you're just not burning as much. There's people who have slower metabolisms just naturally, and they think, well, I'm eating healthy. I'm having fruit. I'm having vegetables. I'm having rice. I'm having quinoa, yams, chicken, but I don't know why I'm getting fat. I'm like, yeah, because you naturally have a slower metabolism. You're what we call an endomorph. So you still have to be careful as to how much of the good foods that you consume. Because if you go too far to a caloric surplus, your body composition will change, but not for the better. So there's that fine line, right? And that's why, again, working with a trainer or coach who's knowledgeable, reputable, experienced can help guide you. And I always tell new clients this who work with me on a nutrition plan, I say, it's going to take me like 3 to 5 weeks to learn your body and understand what you truly are. Are you an endomorph, someone who gains weight really easy? Are you an ectomorph, someone who loses weight very quickly? Are you a mesomorph, someone who puts on muscle very quickly? Are you a combination of the two? One of the two, right? So it's very important that when you're putting someone through a nutritional plan that you learn their body and you understand, okay, this is works for this person, but this doesn't work. This might work, this doesn't work. Take this out, add this in. Okay. And it really is case by case dependent, especially the longer you get into a diet with working with someone. All right. And I can tell you right now, I talked about this in the past. If I were to give two people the exact same diet plan, the first week, same as same. By week 3, they'd be on completely different roads because they're very different body types. Okay, different activity levels, perhaps different genders, different lifestyles, whatever it is, different fitness levels. So the diets change with that. All right. So it's not about, well, how can some people just get away with eating shit and they still look skinny? Well, they might look skinny, but you don't know what's going on internally. Their body fat percentage could be high. They could have severe IBS issues down the road because their diet is so poor. So whenever I tell clients to try their best to keep 80 to 90% of the foods they consume clean, whole food sources, it's not because I just want them to have a six pack. It's because I want them to be healthy internally as well. And that's important because I talk about this all the time. I'm like, eat like shit, feel like shit, right? Also, I didn't look like shit, but some people don't look like shit and they eat like shit. Good genetics. But most people can't get away with doing that. Something's going to happen long term to you if you're someone who eats like crap all the time. If your sugar content is exceeding over 30, 50, 80 grams of sugar a day, something's going to happen long term. You cannot keep that up long term and live to be 95 problem free. Yeah, there's a few genetic freaks out there, but there's also genetic freaks that smoke every day of their life and they live to be 100, but not many people, right? Some people end up getting some type of problems, lung cancer being one of them, right? So you don't want to, do you really want to stack those odds in your favor? Probably not. Okay, so that's why I tell people it's so important to dial in your diet and forget about the aesthetics for a second, but just overall feel better, think more clearly. A lot of people I know who eat crap, they're very moody, very irritable. They need that fix. They need that sugar fix. They need those simple carbs. If they don't have that, they turn into very, very irritable people. All right. So you don't want to become reliant on a certain food or sugar or caffeine, any stimulant, because you can't function throughout your day. I mean, that's an addict, right? So to me, that's not much difference than a drug addict, really. You're just your drug is now sugar. Your drug is now stimulants. So that's not much better. All right. So to me, you want to make sure that you've dialed in your diet. So I wouldn't look at other people and go, well, why can they eat like that and they look like this? Who cares? Who cares? It's their genetics. Stay in your lane. Don't worry about it. And a lot of those people too, like a lot of those people I'm talking about who eat junk food, they might eat McDonald's every day. But I also know a lot of these people that might be their only meal of the day. So they're still in somewhat of a caloric deficit. So because they're in a caloric deficit, they're not going to put on weight. But again, a lot of those people don't work out. Good luck working out if you're eating that crap every day because you're going to feel like shit in the gym. You're not going to feel good. All right. So most of those people don't really work out on a regular basis. So I wouldn't really pay attention to what they're doing. Again, I would focus on doing what you can do to help not just build a better looking physique, but a healthier physique and a more functional physique. All right. Okay. Nick, is lifting 6 or 7 days per week actually beneficial, or are people just overtraining because they enjoy the gym? As someone who does train in the gym 6, 7 days a week, I rarely take days off. I do enjoy it. It's a stress reliever for me. It's like my time to just zone out from business, from meetings, from anything going on in my life. I can just spend 45, 50 minutes a day in my gym training, headphones on. I don't talk to anybody. I just train. So for me, it's very therapeutic. Um, I like to train like that. Now, I don't suggest everyone train like that because I know a lot of people don't like going to the gym or they're too sore to go to the gym. But once you get into a rhythm, I feel that the body can train 6, 7 days a week without overtraining as long as you're putting together a structured training program. I talked about how I don't believe in overtraining. I believe in under recovery. People are not recovering properly. They're doing the same muscle group 3 times a week. They're only sleeping for 4 hours a night. They're drinking 3 times a week. Their sleep quality's gone down because maybe they're going to bed on a full stomach and there's sugar and they're just not sleeping properly, right? So they're not going into a true REM, right? And because they're not eating properly, now they're not recovering properly. Now they're more susceptible to injury in the gym. Okay, they're not hydrating the body properly. So I don't believe in overtraining. I just believe in under recovery. Right. Now, what happens is with overtraining, a lot of people, it's not necessarily that you're just overtraining your muscles, you're also overtraining your central nervous system. But if you're doing everything correctly, as in you're getting in anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep, in my opinion, is adequate for most people. You're making sure you're getting in those 5 to 6 meals a day on your nutrition, which again, I feel is adequate for most people. You're making sure that you are training a different muscle group in the gym each day. So you're not training chest 3 times a week. You're not squatting 3 times a week. If you're following a structured training program like that, you're not going to put too much stress on the muscles and more importantly, the ligaments, joints, and tendons. So if all those things are done correctly and you put them together a structured program where you're following a good nutritional plan, good supplement protocol, an excellent training program, you shouldn't overtrain. So if you're someone who's like, yeah, I like to go to the gym every day, I say do it. I honestly do. And I know I get flamed by this by a lot of these so-called fitness experts say, it's overtraining. I'm like, you need to take one day off a week. I'm like, says who? Same people who say you need to work 5 days a week and take weekends off. It's a very sheep-like mentality. And I've never been a sheep. I'm like, if I have to work on a Sunday night, I'll work on a Sunday night. I don't care. It's the weekend. This 9 to 5 bullshit, like that's fine for a lot of people, but that's not for me. And if you're watching this and you're like, you know what, that's not for me either. I like to train for 7 days a week. I say do it, but I say that make sure that you're recovering properly. So just make sure your diet's dialed in, that your sleeping's dialed in, that your training programs are put together properly. So you're following proper sequence as far as your training split, as far as your exercise selection, and listen to your body. If your body is telling you, hey, this past weekend, I trained my bicep. So I'm not going to train arms for probably about 2 weeks. I'm not going to do any direct bicep work. I'm being very careful right now. I can probably train legs, but I'm still going to take a few extra days off because, when you train legs, you got to rack the bar, hold the bar, rack the weights, whatever it is. So I want to be very careful that I don't make this worse and turn a strain into a tear. So I'm really making sure that I'm taking care of my body. I'm listening to it, and I'll go back and train arms when my body tells me, hey, I'm feeling better again. But I'm not going to go back and say, well, today's arm day, but my bicep feels like it's about to fall off. So I'm going to go train arms. You're going to be a complete idiot. All right. So you have to listen to your body. Okay. So like I said, I don't feel that very rarely do I meet anyone that's overtrained unless you're training like a complete idiot. Like I said, they're training the same muscle group 3 times a week. They're in the gym for 3 hours a day, though, then yeah, you're overtraining. But most people are just under recovering. All right. And if you learn how to recover properly and you learn how to take advantage of active rest, you should recover enough that you can train 7 days a week in the gym and have no problems. Because I do it and I don't get burnt out. I just make sure that I approach my workouts methodically and I train intelligently. All right. Okay, a few more questions here. Nick, do you think most people fail their diet because they lack motivation or because their plan was unrealistic from the beginning? Probably a combination of the two. I have a lot of people that will sign up to work with me on a nutritional plan, and I try to be very, very real with them. And someone comes to work with me, and let's just say they have 100 pounds to lose, which does happen. And they say to me, I want to lose 50 pounds within the first 3 months. This is someone who has never been to a gym. This is someone who's never really followed a consistent diet. Maybe they have too much sugar in their diet. Maybe there's someone who tends to be a binge eater, whatever it may be. And they're telling me they want to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. To me, that's not a realistic goal because, you're really looking to lose more at that point. You're looking to lose more than 15 pounds a month, right? That's a lot to ask for someone who has no training background whatsoever. And so I always say, let's make that goal just a little smaller and a little bit more realistic. It goes back to saying those SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely goals. So for someone like that, I'll say, look, it'll be a win for us if we can just get you portioning out your meals first. And once we get that done, if I'm giving you a meal plan and you're like, oh my God, a food scale, that's going to be overwhelming for a lot of people. But if we just get those first 2 weeks that now you're using the food scale, you're practicing portion control, you're lowering your sugar intake, that to me is a win. I don't even care if you lose 1 pound. I don't even care if you gain weight, but we're changing your eating habits. And yes, it's going to be a slow, long, drawn out process, but I'm thinking life-changing here. I'm not thinking, let's look good for the beach. I don't give a shit if you look good for the beach. I want to help you change your bad habits. I want to help add years to your life. So if we can change those poor eating habits into good eating habits, that's a win. And now let's start looking at the weight loss. And that's why so many times people come to work with me, they sign up for a 12-week nutritional plan. I'm not trying to plug in my own service here, but I will tell you this: 9 times out of 10, when someone books a 12-week or 8-week nutrition plan, they extend that plan. They say, I want to do this again with you. And I want to do this again with you. I've had some people work on the nutritional plans with me. I'm not kidding you, for 10 plus years straight. They never come off because they don't trust themselves doing the diet, number one. And they like to have that accountability with me as their coach, number two. Okay. And I can take them through different phases, whether it's to lose weight, gain muscle, maintenance, whatever it is. Okay. Because I know their bodies. And that is so common for a lot of people who struggle with their diet. So it's the accountability factor. And so that's why for a lot of people who set these unrealistic expectations and say, well, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months, for example, that to me, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because on month one, if you've only lost maybe 5 pounds, now you only got 2 months to lose those 45 pounds. Good luck doing that. That's going to be very difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. So rather than say, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds in 3 months, my goal would say, hey, why don't we just change your eating habit for month one, your eating habits? If we did that, that's a win. Now, month two, why don't we aim for 1, maybe 2 pounds a week? So we're going down 8 pounds. Month three, hey, you know what? Now we're actually losing weight on a consistent basis. Why don't we try increasing your exercise frequency? If you're going to the gym 3 times a week, maybe let's bring that up to 4 times a week. Let's not take down calories anymore right now. Whatever the person may be, wherever they are on their journey, wherever they are on their weight loss goal or muscle building goal, whatever it is. Okay. So I always think if we can make those little changes, as minuscule as those changes may seem to a lot of people, you have to remember, for a lot of people, those are huge changes because they're going to become big, significant changes for life. If you're someone who is consuming tons of sugar a day, let's say you're someone who consumes 100 grams of sugar a day, I'd be surprised if you don't become type 2 diabetic by the time you're in your 50s, 60s, if you're not already type 2 diabetic. But if we can take that 100 grams of sugar down to 30 grams of sugar, and we can do that in a course of maybe 1, maybe 2, potentially 3 months, depending on the person, and now you're doing that for life, you don't need those 100 grams of sugar anymore. We've just added years to your life. We've just prevented you from becoming a type 2 diabetic. We've helped regulate your insulin levels, your blood sugar levels. So to me, those goals are way more important than losing the damn 50 pounds. That'll come. But let's focus on life-changing goals first by making small changes. Small changes turn into big changes, which I always talk about will turn into significant changes. And more importantly, if you focus on the habits, will become sustainable changes, and you can sustain it for life. All right. So that's my recommendation for anyone who's going on nutritional plan. Set realistic goals, set those SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals. And if you really find yourself overwhelmed with how to put together a nutritional plan, or you know that you lack that motivation, you lack that discipline, work with a coach that will hold you accountable, because it makes a huge difference. I get told this all the time from my clients that work with me online. I have some clients that work with me online. I've never met them in person, but they work with me for years. They're like, you hold me accountable, because I know I got to send you that check-in twice a week, and I have to answer that check-in honestly. Like, why lie to me? I'm not going to lecture you if you cheat on your diet. I'm not going to lecture you if you go out binge drinking or if you skip 5 gym sessions, but they know they have to send that to me. So it's all there, and they can see, like, yeah, this is why I didn't lose weight this week, or this is why that I'm not, my dietary habits haven't changed, because I'm not willing to change them. Okay. I'm not using that food scale that Nick's recommended, but it's all there in the check-in. Can't lie in the check-in. It's all there. All right. So if you're finding you lack that motivation with your diet, hire a coach that will help hold you accountable. All right. Okay. Last question. Nick, you've been coaching for over 20 years. Have you ever gotten burned out from being a personal trainer? If so, how did you get through it? Yeah, good question. So I talked about this briefly in the past. When I first started training clients, I worked with people in-house only. So there was no online training yet. Online training didn't really exist. So everyone I saw was usually in a one-on-one setting. And I got very busy very quickly because I talked about how I built my business through working in nightclubs, working in restaurants, offering discounts, offering free sessions, which led to the people I was getting were sending referrals to their friends, their family, and it built up my roster pretty quickly. I would say by year two, I had a full 40-hour week, no problem. The problem, though, for me was that there were only 40 hours in my work week, and I started to do more. I got up to like 60 hours. I'm like, "Wait, I can't do anymore." And so, but I had more people that wanted to work with me. And so I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to increase my rates. Okay, so I increased my rates. I said to a lot of my clients, hey, I'm really high in demand right now, and I have a lot of people wanting to work with me. I need to increase my rates to this. I remember when I did that, I didn't have a single person, not a single person leave my company. They're like, no, that's okay. So that didn't give me any more hours. I was still capped at 60 hours a week. I was still burnt out. I was still doing all these one-on-one sessions, and my rates went up. I think I increased my rates by like 20 bucks a session. All right. And this is only year two as a trainer. I think I was charging back then like 90 bucks a session, which was a lot back then. Okay. So what I had to do then, if I'm capped out at 60 hours and now I'm capped out and I can't make any more money, there's no way because unless I work 100 hours, I'm just going to really burn myself out. So I had to start thinking, well, how can I create more revenue, bring more people into my company because more people want to work with me. So what I started to do was I started saying to a lot of my private one-on-one sessions, hey, would you be open to splitting the cost of a session with a partner? Granted, most of them, about 50% of them were like, yeah, sure. So now I don't have to increase your rates any further. And we're going to split the cost and you're going to split the session. Worked out well. I charged a little bit more because a partner, I was making more and there was a partner session. Then I started saying, well, if I can do that with partners, why don't I start doing that with small groups? And what I started to do was I created like a community where I would put only people in small groups who'd been with me at that point for like 5 years. So they knew how to train. So they didn't need that one-on-one attention anymore. I was still giving them a customized approach to their training protocol, but now there was maybe 3 to 5 people in that group. And I was charging a little bit less because now they don't have that one-on-one or that two-on-one. So that freed up more hours for me because now I was taking my privates and I was training the small groups. But again, even if I brought that down to say 40 hours, that's still me 40 hours a week in the gym, which is a lot when you're trying to grow a business. So that's when I started to hire on contractors. Now that helped a lot because having contractors in your corner, that good contractors too, not someone who just I don't want to say someone just got out of school, but I would hire people who were experienced, a little bit more knowledgeable, and I would pay them more because they're good trainers. So I want to make sure that they're paid fairly so that they stay with the company and that they're also going to take care of my clients. So I'm willing to pay that just for that peace of mind and to keep, especially to keep the brand reputable. And I don't want someone saying, well, the brand is getting diluted. He's hiring all these people who are just like makeshift trainers, weekend trainers. These are people who do this for a living. They practice what they preach. They live and breathe this shit. So I started doing that and that helped because that helped free up more hours as well. So now I wasn't as burnt out because I had more smaller group sessions. I had contractors assisting me, but then online training hit. And I was like, well, that's another way to grow revenue. But God, I'm already working at this point like 50, sometimes 60 hours a week on the floor, even with the contractors, even with the small groups. I don't know if I can add more to online, but I slowly started to add more online clients. It started with one, it went to 10, it went to 50. And now I think today I have like something like 85 people I'm working with as of right now online. And that takes up a lot of your time. I mean, there's times where I'll be in the office for easily 8 hours straight. So I can't be on the floor all day, right? So I had to split up my time. And so I started to put more time towards my online roster. And I had to take more time away from my in-house roster. So again, what I would start to do is even make those groups a little bit bigger, hire more contractors, increase my own rate for one-on-ones, because again, my time is less and less now, right? So to be honest with you, I'm not burnt out at all now because I get to do different things almost every hour of the day. There'll be 1 hour where I am doing a private training session, not as many as I used to do because honestly, like I am fairly busy. So I don't do as much one-on-one coaching as I used to do in-house. I still do it though. And in my next hour, it might be a group of 3 to 4 people. And after that, I might be online for 3 hours. And after that, I might be meeting with my accountant. So I don't have burnout anymore because it's almost like every hour of the day is different, which I really appreciate it because if I had kept doing what I was doing back in year one and year two and doing private after private after private, and I was busy. There were times, Scott, I'd get into the gym at 5 a.m. and I swear I wouldn't leave till 10 p.m. at night. It was nuts. And I was killing myself because all I was doing was back-to-back one-on-one sessions. And I was making pretty decent money, especially for a second-year trainer. And I was very grateful to have a full roster. But I realized by the time I was on like hour 7 or 8, my service was starting to become diluted because I was tired. I was hungry. I wasn't giving the same type of service I was on hour 1 on hour 7. And that's why you see like a lot of RMTs too. A lot of RMTs only work 3 days a week, 4 days a week because of the burnout. And it's not just the physical burnout, because being an RMT is obviously very physically draining. My job is not as physically draining, but an RMT, very physically draining, right? So of course, man, imagine doing 12 hours of massaging people all day. That would be exhausting both mentally and physically. So a lot of them work 3 hours a week, not 3 hours, 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. But they obviously have higher rates to support that lifestyle. And I get it. I totally understand that. That's why I would never try and nickel and dime someone on their rate. I'm like, yeah, that's your rate. If you're asking that rate, I'm going to assume you're worth that rate. Your time is valuable, and I'm willing to pay that. Okay, so whenever I'm looking for a service, whether it's with an RMT, whether it's a physiotherapist, if I don't necessarily think, oh my God, the rate's too high. I'm like, well, wait, why is their rate that high? And I look at reviews. I'm like, oh, they obviously know what they're doing. They've been in the industry for a long time. They've got great reviews. They're busy. So yeah, I'm like, I want the best. And so I'm willing to pay to work with the best. And by no means am I saying that I'm the best. I'm just saying that as you in any industry, from I don't want to say for everyone, because some people have been in industries, and let's face it, there's some people who've been in their industries for 20 years and they've just burned out themselves, and they've let their own service dilute, right? And I know trainers like that. They just did burn out because they never learned to adapt. They never learned to grow. And you have to change with the times. There are so many trainers I know who are still fighting AI. Oh, no, no, I don't need AI. Like, if you're not paying attention and if you're not researching, you're not reading up on AI is going to take your job. It's going to take your training program. It's going to take your nutritional plan. What's stopping one of my online clients from getting a diet plan from ChatGPT? Working with me. And I can tell you, with me, I'm going to make the proper revisions based on what they're telling me. ChatGPT, as great as it is, as great as AI is, it's still very robotic. So it's not going to make those exact tweaks. It's not going to listen to the emotional side of someone saying, hey, I'm not losing weight this week, but I feel like crap and I feel like this. ChatGPT might just say, okay, let's drop your calories more. Meanwhile, that person actually might just need a refeed meal, and maybe actually an increase in calories. And that's where it comes from, working with an experienced, knowledgeable coach. But I understand AI. I understand how to use AI, and I make sure that I stay relevant in the industry. And I research any potential fads. And that's important too, because if you're not willing to adapt and change as years and years go on in your industry, you're going to get left behind. Okay, so to answer that question, I was burnt out by year 2, but no, I wake up every day. I've got lots of energy. I'm excited to go to the gym. I'm excited to work with people, both privately, both in small groups, both online. I love what I do. I do help make changes in people's lives. So it's a very rewarding process. And because I get to do different things like pretty much every hour of the day, I don't think I could go to a job where I'm working behind a desk all day. And to me, that would just be so mind numbing to me. And I understand why people want to clock out at 5 o'clock. There's times that I don't clock out till like 9 o'clock at night, but then there's other times where I'll have like a 6 hour break in my day and I'll go hang up on the roof with Haley. Like, so there's pros and cons to being self-employed where you kind of make your own hours, but I don't get burnt out mentally anymore because I truly love what I do and because I created a lifestyle that is sustainable. Okay, it's a business model that is now sustainable, one that runs pretty smoothly and one that can pretty much run on its own at this point. But if I kept doing back-to-back one-on-ones, yeah, I could see how burnout would happen. And it does happen in this industry. There's a lot of trainers that after year 5, they're gone. And not because they were not getting business, because they were getting too much business and they got too overwhelmed. Like, I can't do this anymore. Done. I hate the gym. I hate training people. I'm going to go into real estate. I'm going to become a hairdresser. Whatever it is, happens. Okay. So if you want to avoid burnout, you have to think outside the box and you have to run your business intelligently. Same the way you approach your workouts. Methodically, train intelligently. Same thing. Approach your business methodically, run it intelligently. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, July the 13th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you watch my content on a weekly basis, I do appreciate the love. It means a lot. It motivates me to put out more content, more YouTube shorts, more blogs on my website. Coaching Reality episodes drop every Wednesday. No Filter Q&A obviously is out today, every Monday. And if you have any questions, you want to leave any comments, leave them below. I'm usually pretty good at answering all my questions. I know I get a lot of questions for the No Filter Q&A. I try to answer them all as they come in. Some questions I'll answer on the YouTube Shorts as well. Sometimes I'll answer them in my blogs. So I'll usually take a topic that I've been asked quite a bit of. I'll put it up in the blog, and that comes out every Friday. So again, please support the channel. Give me a like, spread the news. You know, every time someone says, hey, check out his channel, I like his content. Maybe you don't like my content. That's fine too. I still wouldn't mind if you subscribe. You can hate me. You can hate subscribing. There's a lot of people that hate and still subscribe. So I'm fine with that too. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you on later on this week for Wednesday's Coaching Reality episode. Have a great week, and I'll see you then.